it is your buddy Peace and Harmony with you here today. And we're zooming in and focusing in on a viewer question that we got in. In fact, I've received a number of correspondences as of recent regarding sort of the fog thinking or the delirium, the sort of fragmented thoughts or fog that is induced by a relationship with a narcissist or a psychopath. And then how difficult it is to emerge from this. In other words, the twisting of meaning, the twisting of the experience, the grappling with reality, so to speak, when you slowly lose your grasp erodes from what it is that is really happening. In other words, it's like having, as they say, the wool pulled over your eyes. It's succumbing to the undertow. It's getting drawn in, sucked in, and not being able to see things clearly. And that is, quote unquote, known as the fog. And the delirium, or sort of addiction, the mix of the very lethal concoction of sexual desire or desire for belonging with this, and then to reduce the tension that comes with oftentimes their deceitfulness or trying to really pull things right from underneath your nose. In other words, the narcissist and the psychopath will engage in this gaslighting. In other words, rewriting your reality and even rewriting history or your relationship with them, acting as if nothing happened or minimizing your experience, that it is irrelevant, this is just how relationships are, you should tolerate this. In other words, you should lower your bar. You should lower your standards. You should just continue to tolerate it and accept it. So then we see then a high tolerance of abuse or really kind of addiction to this person being created in the supply or the target. The increasing of tolerance, in other words, where someone just stepping into your shoes would go, no way, I'm not putting up with this. This is too much. This should not occur. I deserve better. So we would call that, lucid or clear thinking, or being on your feet, being grounded, being able to assess things logically and reasonably for your own good, for your own protection. In other words, you wouldn't be saddled with this foggy mindset and these fragmented thoughts and really sort of the diluted thinking that is imprinted upon you by the narcissist or the psychopath. And yes, the narcissist or psychopath know exactly what is occurring when they're setting you through this gaslighting. It is oftentimes very intentional, premeditated, and calculated. In other words, they are so adept at this emotional manipulation that they know all their moves. Think of it very much like a playbook. Like those people who are in sports, like football, soccer. They have a series of moves that they're going to make, correct? They're going to have plays that they make. That is exactly what the narcissist or psychopath do. Of course, they don't cue you in and say, hey, I'm going to devalue you and discard you here at this and this moment, at this and this finish line. We're going to cross this line, and there we go. And then I just run away with the ball and see you later, alligator. I mean, they don't confide, they don't share in that with you. That is what is covert. But the fog is essentially that very lethal and potent concoction of desire, attraction, wanting to be close, the feeling of belongingness is very important. What gets set up here, to belong with them, and this feeling of intimacy or connection, which of course it's that flooding of oxytocin, that dopamine, those feel-good chemicals that are created within you, which they give you kind of like a little bit of a dropper of a dose, a little bit of a syringe. They get under your skin, so to speak, when they are able to do things for you that keep you kind of in their inner circle, or feeling like you've made it with me now. You have done enough. And that is the setting up of the attraction. And then furthermore, though, there's the violating or lowering down of one's boundaries and feeling like, okay, I'm going to put my trust in this person. I'm going to put my eggs in the basket, so to speak. And then there is the belaying or violating of your boundaries and your own thinking, your own, thinking process where you're thinking logically. You begin to get swept up, caught up, swept off your feet, like the gale wind. Again, it's that very potent concoction of the needing for social mirroring. So you begin to then empathize or mirror back how you feel with this individual, with this psychopath or this narcissist, whomever this individual who has been malignant or pathological in your life. So you begin to then mirror or format your feelings with them. So you begin to kind of take on this unreality, this illusion, this delusion, but yet it feels very real. The narcissist and the psychopath are adept at really relaying almost a very more genuine than genuine feeling of experience. So in other words, they engulf people, they enmesh you with this sort of, feeling like you are accepted, feeling like you belong with them. So there's this very kind of like sucking in that you feel, that is set up in the relationship where you feel, under the wing. You feel as if you belong, like you're in a pod all of a sudden. You're just in cahoots with them. You're in their inner circle. So there's very much like an in and then an out. Because they will, once they have you in or hooked or under this sort of addictive chemical that you need to keep going, you need to keep producing in yourself, the levels get higher and higher and higher the more that you continue in the relationship with them. And then furthermore, you begin to really slowly and gradually abandon your own thought patterns, which are clear, which are not diluted, which are not under the illusion with which they are engulfing you in. And so little by little, your grasp begins to erode. Your grasp begins to slip in. You got oil on the steel. You can't get a grip. I mean, it's just like being on a conveyor belt. I mean, it's just going. And then so this is how they get into the subconscious, and then sort of that very, very heightened sense of attraction and desire. And really, it's not only sexual, but it's a desire to survive. The tension becomes so great with which they create in you that you will do anything then to kind of maintain the relationship. You just don't make clear decisions. Hence the fog. The fog is just not feeling grounded like you were. And maybe, that sense of reality, maybe you had felt that, it was lonely. You just suffered a breakup. You just suffered a job loss. You've had trauma in your childhood that makes you susceptible to this. So those are the types of people who are vulnerable, who they're looking for. Oftentimes it's, the low-hanging fruit for them, and they see it. They know exactly who they're able to make vulnerable, and then, basically then tell them, they're able to determine very quickly. And again, as I always use the analogy, that it's, they have a heightened skill here. They have, a skill. It's razor sharpened because of the way that their decision-making is to have control over others. They will do whatever it takes. They are not, bothered by the fact that they're hurting somebody or causing you physical distress or seeing you go into the fog, seeing you get kind of swept up. I mean, it's more power to them, less power to you. So for them, well, it's okay. It's a win situation. If you can give them what they want, if you can be their support, if you can be, their always go-to person, you continue to toggle back and forth and jostle them with their quips, their sexualization, their hypersexualization of everything. You begin to give in and feed them this, with which is, the new bond with which the relationship, you are, if you don't realize it, the percentage in the relationship becomes really 80 to 90% about them and 10% about you. So it becomes all about the support of them and their illusion, and then quote unquote your place in it. But yet to them, you're exchangeable parts. It's kind of like parts of an engine. You could be the carburetor, you could be the calibrator, you could be the cooling fan. It's a very objectified experience. And so that's why you feel kind of like this fog, is because your own desires needs and voice are suppressed or repressed. They're not being validated. They're not aired out. So it's just kind of like if you were to read a book and never discuss it with somebody, it would kind of get lost. It wouldn't. It becomes more real, more validated. It's just like with a movie. If you are able to relate it and experience it with others, it takes on a sense of understanding. Just like the back and forth here. But that is the isolationary effect, or sort of separating from the pack experience that it goes with being in a relationship with a narcissist or a psychopath. There is no validating of that reality. There is no other with which you can consult or confer with. And then, so you kind of get, it is kind of a drowning effect, like a drowning pool effect, where basically, you just are giving into the feeling, but the logic is not taking place. The clear thoughts are not taking place. And then you feel then the fog becomes thicker. You become feeling kind of lost, disoriented. The paranoia, what are they doing? You're trying to get your bearing. You're trying to get your foot, what I call your feet on the ground. You're trying to get your traction, your reality. Where are we going here? It's the prefrontal cortex that is crying for attention, which is able to see and plan and visualize and do, and not get caught up in the fight or flight survival mode, which essentially is what then is elicited in the relationship. It's this fight or flight, the hormones of stress, and then this lethal concoction with the other hormones that are aroused, where you become essentially it's a real contradictory mix. It's like a very lethal. The concoction is not supposed to be there in your bloodstream for very long. If it does, it'll cause a lot of problems. The longer, the worse it can get, because the fogginess can then become this sort of gaslighting and this sort of what's known as kind of like a psychological hijacking, feeling like you're losing touch with what's real or important to you. And nothing seems what it used to be. There's this transmuting of perception. Again, and that's all derived by this, these hormones of stress, of attraction, of hypervigilance, of the fight or flight, the adrenals, the cortisol, the keeping you up. It's kind of, your clock is out of whack. You're on like a super jet lag. You've just taken a journey with this person, and you don't know where you've landed. Are you in the jungles of Taiwan? Are you in the jungles, are you in the savannah of Africa? You don't know kind of where you're at. And then you begin to make excuses because you want to relieve that tension. It's hard to get back. And so the only map is to keep going back to them. You don't know the map out. You don't know, where do we go from here? It's like the map, by familiarity, how to call them, how to text them. Here comes this pathway. It's a little bit worn before. I know how to get back to them and arouse them. I know what I need to do. I need to take pictures and send it to them. I need to update my Instagram. I need to appear this. I need to disappear that. You become, and then eventually it becomes so severe and you hit rock bottom, or seemingly so, when you find that, this person is cheating on you. You see the ultimate red flag is glaring in your face, and now you get to a sense of knowing, but yet you have this uncertainty, this fog. It is emerging or transcending or ascending of this, which comes when you really acknowledge and you begin to address this. You begin to assess it realistically. And you need to do this yourself. You, 100%. You need to take responsibility and accountability and say, okay, this happened, and not over romanticize it. That is the trouble. Why people stay, or oftentimes continue to either go back to this person. They romanticize it. Oh, this person is so gorgeous, so handsome, so rich, so talented. It feels so good. It's like a cloud 59. And never before will I have this again. It's all these excuses. It's justification for why you're in the trouble that you are. It's, it's justifying, it's trying to make excuses to keep the addiction going. But yet that is not in your best interest. It's best to say, whoa, I am actually slamming on the brakes. I'm testing my brakes. Good. My brakes are good. I am throwing it to the curb. Like a viewer said, put a fork in me. I am done. I am out of here. This is not where I want to end up. People end up homeless, end up without jobs, end up without family, ending up with not knowing who they are. They've become a shell of who they used to be. And they are not liking it. So it's time to come back to you, come back into your own reality. It is a wonderful place to be, no matter where you are, wherever your feet have landed is the most beautiful, wonderful, safe and secure place where you need to be. You need to embrace yourself there and let you know you made it through. And it is time now to begin your affirmations, and then, have things to settle down. You don't need to keep rewarding yourself in this negative way. You don't need to self-sabotage yourself. In other words, we need to stop the hurt that feels so good. It becomes dangerous. You end up in the legal system. You end up in the healthcare system. You end up in the unemployment line. You end up in the nobody loves me line. You end up in the, I don't have happiness anymore. I can never trust myself line. How do I get a big dose of self-trust? How do you fill it up? The reservoir, the well, the hole that has been dug so deep. So that is the valley moment where you need to embrace it and realize that, yes, there's going to be some craggy hills up ahead. This is the adventure. This is the good part. You need to then begin to say, this is the perfect place for me to be right now. Yes, it's scary. Yes, it feels lonely. But you need to understand, this is where your independence and your freedom reigns. This is where it all begins. You have a new little infant toddler perspective, a new little embryo, if you will, a little tiny seed that's pushing up through the ground. The moist west, if you've ever seen a tiny, tiny little seed, if you haven't looked at one, go pull one up on the internet, a basically embryonic plant. Before, when you were trying to grasp your reality, here comes the waffle shoe, the big workman boot who tried to squash you down and ground you down, and you can no longer reemerge again. That is what it's like, being crushed in gaslighting by the narcissist or psychopath. You try to emerge, they crush you down. The familiar way is try to put some roots back into the ground and go back to, the old blueprint, or, kind of going back to them. That is not the answer. That is the problem. So we need to erase that story. That is not the way back. Put a big X, in your treasure map. That is not the way to the treasure. We need to put pen to paper. We need to rewrite the map moving forward. It's not left, it's right. We need to go into the order of positive, orderly direction thinking, what I call pod thinking, which is like coming back into your own pod, your own embryonic state, your own little seed in the shell, your own little green, hitherto naive or unknowing identity, and your own little tenderness, your own little shell. Okay, we need to put that little baby back in the soil, which is your home, which is where you're at, your car, wherever it is. We need to kind of like put a little bit of time in soil around it. We need to have a little bit of darkness around that. We need to go through those valley moments. People call it the darkness of the soul. Okay, whatever it is, surround yourself and, turn up the heat a little bit. Give it a little bit of moisture. Have a little bit of emotion. Yes, guys, you included. Give it a little bit of protection. Put a little bit of a boundary around it, a little clarity, a little jar, a little place in the garden where you've got a fence around it where it cannot get trodden on or eaten up by the local, wildlife. And, the raccoons who love to eat the seeds, the rabbits who eat the seeds out of the ground. This is where you're at. And you need to be there and know that is the most powerful, wonderful, independent and liberating place for you to be. We are now emerging from the frog. You're no longer going back to that sort of disoriented thinking. That is not where happiness reigns. That's actually where terror reigns. And that is okay to put the X out, erase it, never go back there. It's okay. You might glance back there every now and again, but you do not want to continue to glance back there. Go positive, orderly direction thinking, 100%. Commit to some clear thinking, your I am. Begin to put your thoughts together one word at a time, one sentence at a time, one paragraph at a time, to get your vision and your footwork moving forward. If you need to get yourself a recovery gift, that's another part of the recovery journal that symbolizes this. If you don't have something tangible that symbolizes your journey forward, you need to get something, tangible. As I recommend, once a week, getting yourself a recovery gift, something like this, follow your heart, that symbolizes this to you and knowing what it means. Whatever that is, whether it's a new pair of shoes, I'm moving forward. Whether it's a new pair of socks, I'm moving forward. A new jacket, a new pair of glasses, a new bracelet that symbolizes a new charm, that symbolizes your freedom, a cross, the sign of your religion, a recovery gift that is 100% symbolic to you, that states, never again am I going back. You can visualize, for example, something like this. If you were to, imagine and the health that you've suffered and then it being blown away. Imagine, getting yourself now that symbolizes you have made it through. Get yourself a necklace or a charm or something, guys included, that this symbolizes your commitment to moving forward. So when you look at this, you know what this means. It is your gift to yourself. If it's a candle, a fishing rod, a new phone, whatever it is, reinforce to yourself in the physical, in the tangible, that you are moving forward. You're never going back to that mindset, that person. And furthermore, it's like a coagulant. You are providing closure to yourself. You're wet sealing, the cracks. No longer are those negative fog seeping in. You can think clearly even in the fog because your thoughts are stronger than their manipulation. It is your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today, and I hope that these videos do help. Please share and please subscribe for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support.